on both Twitch
Yeah.
and YouTube. Yeah, cool.
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm good. You're on location.
Yes, I'm in a different spot. I'm moving around. So I'm in San Francisco, the Silicon Valley area.
Nice.
And
And
I think my video quality might be low too. So
yeah.
we'll
No,
see
it
how
literally just
we'll see how
started
that works out.
melting the second we started. So you sound good on my end.
Nice.
We'll
I'm
keep
without
it.
internet.
Yeah, we'll keep it going. So
Okay,
hopefully,
good.
if you're watching live, Nathan may come in and out of existence, but the audio has been really good. If you're listening, you probably won't notice, but it might be worth watching the live stream a little bit to see
I was
the.
gonna say honestly, it's no different than if I were in Puerto Rico. I could always just at any minute just drop off.
Well, it's funny because like we kind of joke about it, but like you do kind of melt sometimes towards the end. Like the quality like visually degrades and like
Yeah. I know that on at least two different occasions where at the end I think I hear you like, oh, we lost Nathan. I'm like, no, I'm sitting right here, but it seems like
yeah.
I'm not there.
Yeah, you're in it's funny too that you're in Silicon Valley and it's like the internet's worse than being on an island in the Atlantic.
Yeah, I didn't want to make the joke, but yeah, it's Google.
Own
uh,
it, Google. Own it. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I wish they would have kept that whole enterprise going. I mean, they still have the internet, Google Fiber stuff, but they like basically shut it
yeah, but
down.
it's like you heard, or at least I heard a lot about it, and then it seems to kind of drop off, and it feels like it's just one of those things where it's just there now. Like it was
Yeah.
being pushed for a little bit, and all of a sudden it's not, and they seem to have a tendency to do that. I
Yeah,
mean,
like they
I've seen
killed
it with
AI
Gemini.
Ultra
I was
for
gonna
enterprise
say,
and anti-gravity. I'm not mad about it at all. No, Google, I've
yeah,
switched my usage completely away from your products now. So good job,
yeah,
big brain product management there.
yeah.
Trying to make AI consumer only product is super dumb, but good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck.
and they would have had a power user, in if you were still using their product.
I was probably the only evangelist.
You're the only one. You're the only one cranking the engines there.
Yeah, I mean, I still like anti-gravity. Like it was kind of a VS Studio clone.
Mm,
So you could manage everything from there. The chat window wasn't like the chat window in VS Code. It was actually like integrated into the AI sphere. So it had like
yeah,
full
yeah,
visibility into everything you were doing. Um, and it was more of just like a window in there. And then the plan, the document plan review iterate. I love it. I still can't
yeah.
quite emulate it with Claude Code. Like I've gotten close. It's kludgy at best, and it's just really annoying. I have all sorts of markdown file problems, and like I don't understand why
Yep.
VS Code can't handle it. So like Google's actually made an incredible product there, but they apparently think that there's a huge marketplace for that for customers, which doesn't like B2C doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like sure, people want to like build an app or something, but folks paying $20 a month is just not real. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like you can't build a killer app for $20 a month in AI credits or subscription. Like it's
Yeah.
just not real yet. Or maybe ever. We'll see.
Well, I mean, I think we were not planning on talking about this, but
Oh, I'm just
I think,
complaining.
yeah. But it's an interesting topic, right? Because there were, it was Google, Anthropic, and OpenAI trying to push sort of the frontier intelligence, and then Google
Yeah.
sort of dropped off, right? Grok was also in the mix as well. They seem to
Grok's dead,
seen
I
a
think, at
little
this
bit of
point.
revival. They've seen a little bit of revival, but for the most part, yeah. But we were talking a bit offline about it, but Google's approach going towards consumer application, I would say, in some way, it's like a blue ocean where no one's quite taken the crux of doing so, and Google
Yeah.
seems to be in the right position to do it. Right? You see OpenAI, who had tried to break out into that space by creating these sort of side quest things to get
Nah, it was
consumers on
bullshit the
board.
whole time. Nah, I don't know what that was. I think it was like a giant
I think
psyop. I don't know.
I think they were trying to, yeah, I think they were trying to amass an audience by going to the general consumer, and it just didn't work. Um, but I don't know anything about this.
I
And anyway, Google sort of dropped off by trying to focus on this sort of unmet market, and maybe they'll crack the nut at it. I don't
When
know.
I've said it before, the Google workspace was like perfectly positioned for AI, and I
Mm.
think they've done a pretty good job integrating it. Like, is it useful? I don't know. I'm not probably the target market. I don't think like taking a piece of information out of my email and putting it on my calendar is worth like an upcharge. And
Or
like,
50,000 tokens.
right. I mean, this is something Apple's been failing at for so long too that I just like I don't like sure, I would love a world where the AI assistant just kind of knew what I wanted and executed flawlessly. The reality is it's not anywhere close to being there, and anything important I'm still going to manage myself because it just doesn't work well enough or consistently. But I don't know. But the programming piece, like they were really ahead with Gemini 3.1 Pro
Mhm.
and Flash.
Even
I don't
Nano
know.
Banana, even Nano Banana, they're still
Yeah,
yeah, on the image front.
yeah,
It's kind of
that's
different,
kind
but
of
yeah.
consumery, but in all your Google photos. But the well, now I'm gonna go there. The coding space though, like they were really ahead, and like some people still swear by Flash 2.5 for specific
Mm,
tasks. It just crushes on. I didn't think Flash 3 was all that impressive, and especially for the cost, like it just like me as pro. But 3.5 Flash has been pretty damn good. Like seems like it's
mm,
gotten worse, but like compared to like Sonnet 5, like it's much more capable for utility purposes. Like code is
yeah,
still a little hit
I
or
agree with
miss,
that.
but like Sonnet's pretty good for coding. I don't use the other company, so I can't really talk about it. Um, but like the anti-gravity piece, I it seems like Google has bet on customer and it or consumer, and it seems like B2C. And in that paradigm, anti-gravity doesn't make any sense and coding doesn't make any sense because we're just not anywhere
Mhm,
close to that being real for most people. But like the company that invented transformers and shooting themselves in the foot, I think they're doing that again with like coding because they were a little bit behind. But I think
ah,
they could have really pushed it forward because the last Google I/O, they had a huge like agentic framework push, and they have some really cool frameworks for enterprise. It's still a little too developer focused for like non-technical or non-developery people to like really execute on,
mhm.
but that foundation is clearly there, and I'm sure they'll integrate it into anti-gravity and other stuff. So it's like you kind of have a one-click spin up app once you like build your app or whatever. But it's a huge missed opportunity, like the biggest missed opportunity, I think. And Google is always, product is always about trade-offs. Google has been, pretty good about shooting themselves in the foot, but it usually makes sense. Like they're trying to go for scale or they're trying to go for a play
Mm,
in a market. But for this, like leaving the coding market like completely aside and like not having a solution, and like the solution like they do have is forget what it's called. It's also super confusing. So great way to sell your customer on stuff is just make it super confusing. That's a surefire way to get a mass market adoption. Um, so I don't know what they're doing. It kind of pisses me off because like I actually really do like anti-gravity still. I just can't use it because it's not I'm not paying token level pricing when I can get subsidized somewhere else, frankly. And also the models aren't good enough to pay for when there's other competitors on the market. Sorry, Google.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we did talk about anti-gravity when it first came out, and I do agree with you.
Yeah.
They really nailed the interaction mechanisms, I think, for certain types of people.
Yeah.
I think that was the big missed. You can sort of see that with was it Cowork and I forget what OpenAI is called, but it's very similar. But they tried to come up with this like nicer UI in a way to leverage the either Codex or Claude Code, and I think anti-gravity had them beat on both fronts to market and in terms of usability, and it just never they never doubled down on it,
When they
unfortunately.
they were pushing, and like I'm all for like B2C and exposing things to consumers. I think that's great. And
Mm,
it's like, but the money is in the enterprise right now, slash maybe
mm,
forever. And as a byproduct, if you want to get users and like expose people, that's great. Right. Let the enterprise pay for it, offer a private tier for cheaper price or whatever. Um, and I my assumption was that the margin for like the workspace team was just getting hit too hard or obliterated because
Mm.
like I was probably obliterating your margin. Sorry, not sorry. Like, I mean, I was using pretty much 100% of my quota like
Yeah.
every month. And like you could have adjusted that. You could have made another tier. I'm waiting for like the $500 a month tier from a company or the $1,000 a month
I
tier.
mean,
It's
it's
coming.
probably gonna happen. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about this before, but if you have to pay an engineer a couple $100,000 a year plus benefits, like $1,000 a month for a coding assistant, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense in some instances. However, it has to be good. It's just not there yet.
Hmm.
I don't see it. I've been listening to a lot of AI doomer shit this last week.
Yeah.
And I don't see the doomerism. Like, yes, theoretically, it's like science fiction. I'm like, sure, it'd be really cool if we could travel faster than light. Physics doesn't allow for that. And
Right.
maybe it's possible and we just don't understand it. But I'm like, it's kind of a fun thing to think about, but I'm not gonna like live my life in a way that is going to be impacted by faster than light travel, which is theoretically not even really possible. I mean, quantum, we've talked about this a little bit. It gets a little weird, but
Yeah.
I don't ever see a reality in my lifetime where Andrew is going to transport to Mars in less than like 5 months. Prove me wrong.
Not in your yeah, you're not in your lifetime. Yes, yes, yes. I
And
agree
if
with
we
that.
do,
Yes.
great. I'm all for it, but there's no evidence, right? Like there's just
Yeah.
none. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a hint on the doomer stuff. Like, it doesn't cease to amaze me, but I find myself continuously frustrated by the way humans are operating in this era. Like, we've never had it better in almost every instance, and yet we find ways to continuously sabotage ourselves. So, like, New York just put out a bill that pauses all AI data centers for a year
Mm,
because, like, a bunch of fucking bullshit reasons, frankly.
mm,
And we've talked about this before and I've taken a lot of heat for it on and offline, but like it's all made up. It's the AI data center problem isn't a problem because electrical generation and distribution is cooked. Like it's booked out for 5 or 10 years. They could
yeah.
build all the buildings tomorrow and they're not going to use your water because they can't, one, get enough GPUs to put in there, two, they can't get electricity to supply them, and oh, they'll build a nuclear power plant on top of the data center. Well, that takes 15 years. So like good luck.
Mm,
This is the Silicon Valley like crazy optimism manifest at a level of society that I never thought would be possible. You need that
mm.
kind of level of optimism in a startup. You need that level of optimism to change the world, but you also need healthy skepticism to balance it out. And everybody's just kind of taken these, three CEOs word for it.
Word. Yeah. I mean, I think the
Well,
key word
for
you
I mean, there's
mentioned
a
is healthy
handful of
skepticism,
people,
right?
right?
Yeah, there are groups of people, right? But like, yeah, on at least with this topic, it's the extreme optimism and the extreme pessimism, right? So you have the
Yeah.
doomers, and then you have the techno optimists. So uh, I'm not sure that's strictly a result of the times that we're in, but we've sort of seen it gradually moving that direction where, at least in the US, it is becoming more and more bipartisan. You're either one or
Well,
the other.
it,
Um,
I mean, it's social media. We've talked about this incessantly, but it's just like the level of curiosity of folks is so low, and
mm,
the curiosity has almost been reframed now to like, instead of going like a root cause analysis or apply critical thinking, it's become, I'm going to just consume all of the other predetermined viewpoints in my frame of view, and now I'm an expert. And it's like, no, you've just accumulated a
mm,
bunch of points of view, which is valuable, but you have to go to that
yeah.
next level. You have to evaluate those points of view to understand if they're valid or not, or understand why there might be gaps. There is no perfect viewpoint. And if you think you have a perfect viewpoint, you're wrong.
Mm,
It's just that, so it's like there's always nuance, of course, but if you don't have critical thinking, you're never going to get to nuance. And just the amount of talking points that I hear, like, yes, data centers can be catastrophically environmentally detrimental. AI is also, it does have promise to get to the point within a few years where it is in an absolutely transformational technology unlike anything we can imagine. That's possible. I don't know that it's going to happen. uh I'm definitely not going to feed the optimism. Like every time everybody predicts the future with certainty, like they're wrong. It's just
You're
not how
wrong.
it
Yeah,
works,
yeah. Right.
you
Yeah.
know. And with Moore's law and CPUs, we went through this, you know, we're going to double every year, and then, you know, the 90s happened.
Mm,
And we got leapfrogs, but we didn't really have anything transformational happen. And so,
yeah.
I mean, the Pentium 4 was kind of transformational in terms like architecture, and it solved a lot of hard problems. I don't want to diminish it, but at the same time, it's like no one's life really radically changed that much until we started to get to true like dual core computing. And then we got all the software caught up like 10 years later with actual like multitasking and multi-threading capabilities.
I mean, I think that's an interesting parallel to, I guess, time scale, right? Like you never really know how much you're going
Yeah.
to be able to build on top of the things that do come out, right? At that point in time, when you have something like the Pentium 4 or an AI data center, you only see the immediate consequences, but you don't see that
Yeah.
that actually contributed, 15 years down the line to some
Yeah.
amazing growth, or the other way around.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah. When I remember, you know, when the Pentium 4, I mean, this is kind of nerdy now, but Pentium 4 came out, it was too hot, right? It was really
Mm,
expensive.
yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
And like hyper threading kind of made stuff better, but almost everything was single threaded, and the Windows scheduler wasn't really good enough to take advantage of it. So like you got some boosts, but in a lot of times you actually got better benefit by turning off hyper threading and just running things at a faster clock rate. And it
Mm,
was a clock race. And then the clock race kind of stopped because it was really fucking hard and we started to hit physics. So then they started saying, well, instead of making one really, really fast clock, what if we made multiple slightly slower clocks and put them together? Okay,
mm.
great. Well, it's so much faster, but none of the software we use can take advantage of it. So it takes, 3, 5 years to. I remember having conversations with people.
Multi-threading.
Multi-threading is so hard; it doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense to
yeah.
do it, and blah blah. And it is hard, and a lot of times it doesn't
Mm.
make sense. But when you can put 20 cores that are really fast into a CPU, it kind of doesn't matter at a certain point.
Yeah, this is super super weird, but we were talking before this about the we're taking the same paradigm. There's one big thing versus a bunch of small things. Earlier, we are talking about Fable.
Yeah.
Is it better to have Fable, which is a sledgehammer, or do you have just a ton of Opus agents, which are just smaller, slow, slightly worse? You add them all together, maybe they do better.
I mean, maybe we should talk about that, right? So it's like I've been using Fable as I can, and we were talking about it. My conclusion is that it seems like it's a better model in every
Yeah.
way. Like I'm sure it's not as good in some way, but everything I've ever thrown at it seems to be better. It's also better at consuming tokens, and it's also better at like token inflation, where it's using a lot more
Mm,
tokens for a similar task on a different model. It's also twice as expensive. And so like what you were just saying, like to break it down plainly for folks, was like if I'm using Fable for a task, I would expect that task to be twice as good than using like Opus, or using an iterative loop
mm,
with Opus and having Opus take a shot at it and then an iterative improvement for two uses, because it's twice as expensive. And so you could
yeah.
argue you get twice as many tokens. Tokens aren't tokens, they're not equal, but like just to kind of maybe math it for some folks. So I am not seeing a definitive like so much better given the cost.
Hmm.
If Opus gets stuck, or like there's a hard problem, yes, it'll power through it in ways that Opus tends to not. I did deploy it on something that Opus just failed at. Like I went through 3 or 4 loops with Opus, it just could not figure it out. Took Fable 2 times, so it was twice as expensive as, well, it was about probably equivalent cost because it was 4 to 1, but
Yeah.
cool, I guess. So I just burned, what, I don't know what the math comes down to, but like call it 50% of my budget on solving a problem where maybe Fable, I didn't have Fable at the time, but like, how do I know when to use Fable? Like they keep for the hardest tasks. Well, everything I'm doing is hard. And I
Mm.
really don't see it, frankly, like, I want to talk about the project thing that's like secret, but like
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Right, right.
deployed
Yeah, you
it,
want to get it done. Yeah.
and it made some interesting improvements, but it made some suggestions for improvements for I'm building an AI system, and Fable had some interesting analyses, but also did not go nearly as deep or to the level that I was expecting for like model
Mm.
adjustments or like optimizations for model tooling, that kind of stuff. It did ask me, it's like, are you cool with like modifying the model or like changing your own? I was like, sure. And then it was like, oh, you should turn off power saving on your CPU to make it like, yeah,
Just let it go. Yeah,
correct.
burn it all. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny with the power limits, like sometimes less power is more power or more speed, depending on what you're doing. So
Mhm.
it's not
Yeah,
a
yeah.
universal rule either. Anyway, that's my rant on Fable. I don't know if you have anything to.
No, we were talking about it right before it, and I think that's we've sort of seen it. I think come to this point where it was like each. You may have heard the term step changes. Anytime a new model came out, it was like a step change kind of thing. And I think we've been at the point where these new model releases aren't quite step changes anymore. Like, yes, there are some problems that these new models are really, really good for, like the other ones, the older models couldn't solve. But we probably saturated that point where a good majority of the issues that we encounter or we want to throw at these models now can be solved by these smaller models.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the space that I think we're playing in now, and maybe that's the stop of this. Oh, we'll see. This I was going to say the stop of this pushing the frontier of intelligence, trying to build the AGIs because we're kind of at the limit. It seems
Yeah.
like at least I don't know exactly what's going on in those frontier labs.
I don't think they do either.
Um, fair enough. Fair enough.
The
But
well, and I guess I'll qualify my statement with the Fable stuff too. Like, given unlimited tokens, sure, I'm sure it's like
yeah,
magical.
right, right.
But like, am
Yeah,
I
yeah.
going to burn $2,000 every time I like open up a prompt? Like, no, that's not real. No
Right,
company
right.
is,
Yeah, yeah, you bring the
right?
practicality element into it, and it
Yeah.
doesn't seem to make as much sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
it reminds me of like mainframe time, right? Where it's like you kind of really do the work offline to like use your 10 hours of CPU to the most effective you can. Uh, and like you were talking about step modeling, I think this is kind of reminiscent of CPUs. I don't know why my mind's on that, but like the TikTok cycle, which is what Intel revolutionized after they couldn't continuously put out a much better thing, so they did a step improvement or like a iterative improvement on a trying to make this easy to understand, on a design.
Feature cycle or yeah,
Yeah,
something. Yeah, some why am I brain farting on the word too? Initiative, some
well, it's the
initiative, right? They
it's
would
the
kind of
package and the die and all that stuff. But for folks like who
yeah.
don't know what we're talking about or don't care, like it was an iterative improvement. So it was a massive leap, iterative improvement, massive leap, iterative improvement, and then they ran out of that, and then it became TikTok talk, and it was highly controversial because it used to
Mm,
be basically every 2 years you were getting a brand new CPU design, which tended to be a lot better, like 10, 15, 20, 50% faster sometimes. And then Moore's Law kicked in. And so,
yeah.
or Moore's Law was stalled, I guess. I guess Moore's Law says that's what'll happen, but it's like physics kicks in at some point. And so the same thing's happening with AI. Like we're in the early days, there's a lot of room to go. There's a lot of juice to squeeze, so to speak, but like there's only so much blood you can squeeze out of a turnip. And like all I'm seeing right now is like
That's a new
all,
one. That's a new one. What's that again?
it's an old,
Oh, is it really? Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
squeezing blood out of a turnip,
Wow. That's the first I've heard of that. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
turnip juice.
I didn't know it's called blood.
I think it's kind of red color, so it's like I don't know what the
Ah,
history of
okay.
the idiom
Okay.
is.
Okay.
I'm sure there's
Yeah.
some
And
like magical 2,000-year-old thing about it, uh, but yeah, I mean, it's the data center thing. Like all of these claims are, it's like hypothetical compounded on hypotheticals.
yeah. Right.
Right. And
Right.
sure, maybe it's all real, maybe it's not, but it's like you have so many levels of abstraction happening for all this stuff. Like, yeah, if we just octupled the compute, it would be octuply better. And the scaling law paper, the math's math, but like so did Moore's law until it didn't.
Mhm. Right.
Right. And like physics happens and like shit's hard. And when you start scaling things that much and you have like data center level compute, and then you have multiple data center level compute, like there's all sorts of new challenges that interact that you have to solve for. And sure, theoretically it might work, but the actual like physics and atoms and people, it's not as easy. And I'm still dubious. Like, I don't think the transformer architecture is going to give us AGI. I think the bet is that if we can blow enough compute on any problem, then the transformer architecture will work well enough, because you can just run it 50 million times and it'll statistically make the thing work the way that you want it to. And I'm like, that's kind of lazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But humans are naturally lazy, right?
So anyway, I wouldn't, and I mean, I've said before too, the number one concern I have is not the resource stuff. It's the value that's being generated by the data center needs to be returned to the society and the people
Yeah,
in the
yeah, I agree with
community
that.
and also the country. So if you open up an ice cream shop in some rural community somewhere, there's a couple people who are going to work there. You get some jobs, there's some tax base. Maybe you have a little bit of a tourism thing, like, oh, you're going to attract people who don't normally stop in the town, right? With a data center, you have a short-term employment boost sometimes. A lot of times they bring crews from out of the area. And then you get a little bit of tax money for the land, but you don't actually get tax revenue based on the value that's generated. So if I scoop 50 ice creams a day and you get a penny per ice cream, that's 50 cents per day in tax revenue you get. Whereas if I push 50 bits across the server, I get nothing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't want to have a fuck ton of taxes on everything. Like, I'm really frustrated. I live in Washington State and I'm very frustrated with the state of our taxes here. However, we need to have a sane tech tax that taxes, especially these hyperscalers and data center operators, to return that value to not only the local municipality, to make sure that they have water treatment systems for all this excess water that these data centers are jettisoning out into the environment, so it can be treated safely or recycled, or electricity, and that the society benefits from it. Right? It shouldn't just be the people with the capital who build the stuff get to then extract all the wealth out of the ecosystem and do whatever they want with it. That wealth needs to be returned back. And I'm not talking about some stupid socialism, communism nonsense. That's how our society works. That's how it's worked the entire time. That's what made America different than Europe. Right? Is this feudalism, this idea that I have power and wealth and I'm just going to continue to gain that, was something that was different here. We're like, nah, we're going to take that and we're going to make society better with the money and the value. And in return, we're going to give you highly educated people. We're going to give you roads. We're going to give you safety. We're going to give you an electric grid. All these, what we call social services,
Social,
you
yeah,
need to get
yeah.
paid for. And at a certain point, there's a capital flip over. We've talked about this too, but there's so much capital at play that you literally can't, you just funnel more capital up. And that's a problem with capitalism. And the way that we've done that in the past is taxes. And there's other ways to do this too. But like, the problem is there is a tipping point, and it's not hard work. The people who are saying it's hard work is fucking bullshit. It's luck. It's skill, but it's also luck. To amass enough capital to tip the scale to the point where you basically have an infinite money train is luck.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah,
How do you mean luck
multimillionaires
in
and
the sense of?
billionaires. Yeah, like the people who are at the forefront of these conversations tend to be people who have obscene amounts of wealth. And they see this as a way to eliminate employees, which are expensive, so that they can get more wealth. And they see this as a way to eliminate jobs and to create robot labor that they can have their private robot army do whatever they want without questioning. It's megalomania manifest.
Sure.
And my argument is like, I don't know, maybe not, but like, at a certain point of hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, you can't as an individual return that wealth into the society. So like, the primary economic principle at play is that I'm a business owner, I create value, which creates money. And that usually manifests very easily through the banking system. I make $1 million, I put it in the bank loans out that $1 million 10 to 1, let's say. And so now there's actually $10 million in the economy that people are using for buying a house or starting a business or getting a car or repairing their roof or whatever, right? And then they hire
Mm.
a roofer to come, and then the roofer charges money and makes value and then puts their money in the bank. And then you get this like compounding monetary flow. This is a very simple, even though it's kind of complex, of how the monetary system works. The problem is when there's one person or a very small amount of people who make a disproportionate amount of money, that money doesn't actually really get returned back into like the standard ecosystem.
Right. Right.
And then it gets funneled
Yeah.
into things like AI ventures. And then the
Mhm.
people who benefit from the AI venture are a very small group of people who have very specialized skills. And then that doesn't trickle back out. So it's the same way as other people have said, like Bill Gates can only get so many haircuts, right? So if Bill
Yeah.
Gates has all the money in the world, Bill Gates can get, let's say, one haircut an hour, let's say. But if you have 1,000 people who get 1,000 haircuts every hour, you now have much more opportunity and you have much more wealth distribution, and the society actually gets better because the people who cut hair now have kids and they send them to college and they're the next fucking Einstein or they're the next Mozart, or right. So it's a fanning distribution problem, and we haven't solved that with tech. And tech is very good at vertical monopolies, which is how you accumulate this wealth very easily. Like we know this, but we have allowed it to happen. And because it's an abstraction, because we can't see the oil, we can't see the tires, we can't see the cars, the Henry Ford problem, it's really hard for folks to make rules to break up those monopolies to make that make more sense. And now I'm just ranting on
Yeah.
economics, but
Well,
it's that's the core problem,
it's
right? And it's bullshit, and we need to fix it.
yeah. We've talked a little bit about this before. I think both on and offline, but
Yeah,
some of the things that the topics that we bring up, mostly technology, to be honest. But the elements we talk about, creativity and art. Those are a challenge to that system of how do you actually fix that. And the only challenge I would have for you on the technology front is yes, technology is good at monopolizing, it is good at verticalization. But one of the other things that we talk about a lot with respect to technology is the way for it to democratize something, to bring the level or the barrier of something more accessible to a lot of people, and that sort of evens the playing field. It really, again, is more of the tool, and it depends on how it's used and leveraged. And
right.
we
But it
just happen
only
to have
does
people that
that.
leverage it in a certain way.
It only does that if people have access, and if there is a competitive system that is accessible without control. So if the like, it's a good example of this. Uh, well, an illustration of the point would have been prohibition of alcohol. So they tried to gate the
Mm.
technology of making alcohol, right? It's been known by humans since time began, probably. We figured it out pretty quick. For folks who don't know, you basically take some type of a grain and you make some sugar, and the yeast eat it and it produces alcohol or bad chemicals that'll kill you, depending upon the yeast.
Moonshine. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? And you get different types of alcohol, some of which make you go blind, some of which don't. So don't try this at home, but it's a relatively simple process. It happens, naturally in nature. If an apple falls off a tree and it gets the right yeast in
Yeah.
it, you get an alcoholic kind of fruit
Ferments.
juice.
Yeah. Mhm.
Now fermentation has been known. So they tried to gate the technology, and during prohibition, to say nobody could do it. Well, other people had that technology. Canada sent a lot of whiskey to America, along with other countries. Oh yeah, no, it's a huge
Mm.
problem. And people were doing their own thing, right? Because they had access to stills, or they could manufacture a still to do it. And so then the prohibition and it ended up failing, but the solution to that was making it more difficult to produce the substance, or illegal. And so then
Mm.
you conglomerated and effectively monopolized the production of alcohol to a few different companies, which everybody probably knows their household names now. Homebrewing is like a different kind of
Mm.
thing, and like personal use alcohol manufacturing, I guess, is a thing. But the point is that if you didn't even have access to those chemicals or that process, you couldn't do it. Then you are in a technological monopoly, and that's what's happening with AI. It's like I can't just go train my own model. Like I theoretically can, but I'm not going to get anywhere near um, foundation model capability. And what's already happened and what is continuing to happen is that they're locking away that technology, and so the it's a complete asymmetric power problem. With every other technology in history, there's always been some kind of counterbalance that fashions that other people, you invent a spear, well, then you double up the metal on your chest and now you're impenetrable, right? The
Mm.
the bow was pretty easy to make. You got armor that defended against it. You crossbow. Well, crossbow was fucking hard to make and it required engineering, so there wasn't a lot of it. But you had countermeasures, right? Castles were another
Yeah.
technological that got made way to other different. But the problem with AI is because once you hit a certain level of proficiency, you can just move so much faster and farther than anyone else. Like if you don't have foundational access to it, you're left behind, or you're left with a
Hmm.
much
Yeah.
more inferior product. And so I 100% agree with what you're saying, but I think this is a very different situation. And the solution isn't to just have a prohibition on it. The solution is to make sure that everybody has access to it. And the people who, and I'm done with my rant, I promise. And the people who keep professing this, Sam Altman, Dario of Anthropic, and Google, the CEO, none of these motherfuckers have put out an open model that's worth shit. I'm really mad about it.
That's more okay. Yeah, that's more. Yeah, okay, okay. I
Right?
mean, I was gonna make a
ChatGPT did
counterpoint, but yeah,
ChatGPT,
Yeah,
OSS.
GPT OSS for a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Meta did something a while ago.
Yeah.
Gemma,
Meta
Google's
was
Gemma
trying,
is not great.
I shit on Meta
Meta
a
gave
lot,
up.
but they were trying. Yeah,
They,
they've given up now.
I think they gave up. Yeah, they gave up on it.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
they just put out I think it was a tokenizer that looked pretty good. I haven't tried it, but I saw the card for it. But the Chinese companies, what is
mhm.
it? Z and
Z.ai, DeepSeek.
DeepSeek.
Uh,
What's the other one? The Minimax people, Kimmy,
it,
Minimax.
it
Like
is
I
it is
can't
Mini
keep
it is
track of all those
Minimax,
companies.
Kimmy,
Yeah,
Kate. Yeah, yeah. Although
Quen.
yeah,
Yeah.
Quen.
So,
Yeah, I was gonna
so
say
your
Nvidia
open,
on the U.S. side. Nvidia is a open source player, so their
yeah,
Nemotron models. Yeah, yeah.
thankfully, because they understand the problem. If they get locked into a couple companies, they don't have a good market to sell to. They want to sell to everyone,
Yeah,
right? No,
yeah,
seriously.
yeah,
And Jensen
yeah,
Long
yeah,
has said
yeah.
that
That's a good
multiple
point.
times in non-direct ways. My point is, the Chinese models are open, number one, so you can run them. But number two, the weights, the things that make the models express or quote unquote think in certain ways are also largely open. Not all
Control
always.
plot. Yeah,
There's
yeah, right.
yeah, there's some asterisks, but none of these other companies have done that. And so again, to democratize technology, where the fuck is it? They're like,
I
oh,
think
we need to be told to do it. Fuck that. You can release it tomorrow. The reason they're not is because it puts them behind potentially. And people get to see their special sauce. And it's pretty special right now for the most part. It's pretty good. All the big three are all pretty good. But that's not open. That's not transparent. That's not democratic. That's not what label you want to throw on it. And I'm sick of the double speak at this point. And no, I don't think the Trump administration is going to fix it either. They keep saying they're going to, and I think they're going to fuck it up more, to be honest. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong. I want to
yeah.
make sure I hate on everyone in this segment of Andrew complains about something on a Thursday
Everyone
afternoon.
sucks. We're done. Everyone sucks. We're done. See you later.
Hey, Germany just put
Well,
out
I
a really
mean,
cool model, like a German language
do
model,
they?
but yeah,
Oh, okay.
I need to
That's why
write this
I
stuff
did not hear
down.
about it.
Yeah, no, like literally, I think dropped today. I think it's get the numbers wrong. It's like a 32 billion parameter, but it's like outpacing itself in terms of capability. So like
Hmm.
promising, right? There's other
Yeah,
people
yeah.
doing it, but the problem is like they're even the Nvidia stuff's like pretty good, but it's like
Yeah,
I don't know. I hate to quantify it, but it's like 70% as good as like foundation, and it's really geared towards people like large enterprises, banks, people who are already well capitalized to like
sure. Yeah.
be able to not get locked in, sort of thing, which is great, but like it doesn't really help small businesses. It doesn't really help people who can't afford ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, anyway, I'm done.
No, I mean, it's a good. I think AI is sort of uniquely positioned in this space because I think it'd be wrong to say we haven't seen similar things before with different types of technologies, right? Basic utilities, and maybe more recently, like access to the internet. Like there's still a battle going on with people not having access to the internet. Although I think the
Yeah.
difference with something like AI is the cost to provide the service is just too
Yeah.
great to be subsidized. And we're starting to see some of that happening now where
Yeah.
the subsidization era is pretty much over.
I would,
Um,
well, I don't know. Maybe. I doubt it. They need to go public first. And then they can't shed a bunch of customers. So they're in a little bit of a quagmire of we're subsidizing the shit out of all this stuff. We're gonna go public and then we're gonna have to release our numbers. And then if we shed
Figure
half
out,
our
yeah,
customer
yeah.
base, our stock's gonna tank and then we go under. So they gotta figure something out. I suspect the limits will just invisibly go away, which is also super transparent and democratic. You have 5 bars of tokens to use. How many tokens is that? Well, it depends on your usage. Yeah, that's not an answer.
Mm.
Anyway, I do think AI is different though. It's the only technology that I'm aware of that we've really invented that has the ability to create. I'm not saying it's sentient. I'm not saying it's alive, but like
Your terminology was
I know, but what I
yeah.
mean, I'll qualify what I mean because I don't have the word for it. AI does not create. It is a statistical representation and output of an input. However, I can't go to the radio and have it create a software
Yeah,
program.
yeah,
I
right,
can't
right,
go to a
right, right. Yeah,
radio and
yeah,
have
yeah.
it, reason a complex formula for a business venture. I can't have it read 50 articles and distill it down for me.
Yeah.
And so there's an asymmetric use of the technology, and you can talk about if it's good or valuable or whatever, but the point is that the belief is that it will get better over time, which is probably true. And if you don't have it now, you're already far behind and you're not learning those skills that you need to advance forward. So theoretically AI will get better at being usable, but like at that point, are you already done? I think, and that's the fear that a lot of people are starting to express, is that this is one of the few technologies that it's like if you don't have it, it's like gas in World War I, right? If you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
gas,
yeah,
you're like,
you're dead on arrival kind of thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And like if you don't have the gas mask technology, you're dead. And then you kind of get it, but it's like the gas mask technology isn't great. But now we're creating nerve agents for skin, and now we're just going to kill literally everything that moves. And then we're like, maybe that's not a good idea. So we came
Yeah.
together and changed how we approach it. There's a resistance to that today with AI and regulation because we alone can't do it. Because if we put a prohibition on it, China or Europe or someone else is going to potentially unlock this AGI, which I'll qualify as AI that's capable of improving itself in ways that humans can't in
Improving,
a
yeah, sure.
near linear fashion. And that's the scary part that I think people are really getting to. Anyway, I
Well, that's why you see all the AI
promise.
doomer stuff.
Right. And I mean, I don't think we're anywhere near this, just to be really
Mm,
clear. I also I think like we would be stupid to not keep pushing it forward, but we have to figure out ways to make sure everybody is on equal footing to approach the table and do with it as they do. I
mm.
don't believe that we can just like force it on everybody, but like everybody should have access to it. And like your free like 10 tokens or whatever you get is not it. Um, and we need a way to
10
return
tokens.
that value, that the value that is purportedly generated. Again, I'm really skeptical that there's a high ROI on any of this stuff, to be honest. Like I just don't see it for most cases. There's definitely ROI. I'm making ROI with it. So there is ROI to be had. It's just, I think giving it to somebody and saying, make ROI or make your job better. I don't think that's really it.
Mhm.
But, and it's not redistribution. It's not having American citizens owning the companies. Like I'm not against ownership of the companies, but what they're trying to do is at least in OpenAI's instance, is they're trying to have the American taxpayer own shares of the company, which effectively props up their valuation. Right? It's not
Yeah.
to return value to the American population, it's to hold up their stock price. And I don't think people are getting that. We buried the lead, and you're going to be at open sauce.
Yeah, I was
That
going to say,
transition.
I'm keeping an eye on the clock.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason I'm here in San Francisco is there is a conference or a convention, I should say, called
Yeah.
Open Sauce. And it's really a gathering of a bunch of creators who contribute in the open source manner, and I will be exhibiting there. One of the things that we have talked about on this pod before, and it seems like it's been a long time because I think the very first cast we talked about this device, this clockwork
Yeah,
orange helmet
clockwork
that
orange
we
helmet. You can see it live.
mentioned. Yeah. So I will be an exhibitor at Open Sauce 2026 in San Mateo. So um, I'm here for the weekend trying to prepare this demonstration that I have for the event itself.
And it's not going to steal
But
your soul, probably.
no, no. I mean, for safety reasons, I'm not going to have it actually active. That was originally the plan, was to have it live, and you could
Yeah.
try and test it out. Some part of the back of my mind still wants to be able to do that, but I'm really focused on just making sure I have something presentable so that I can show it and talk about it. And
Yeah.
I think the main reason I wanted to bring this device to something like Open Sauce was, Andrew and I have talked a bit about capabilities of open source and open source science and what that might look like. So for as a quick reminder, one of the driving goals for this particular project is to present a stable and standard platform for academics to be able to research the modality, which is transcranial direct current stimulation, a bit more consistently. So everyone is doing their own experimentation, everyone has their own parameters, and because of that, you have some academic papers saying, hey, this works for this, and some academic papers saying, hey, this doesn't work for this. So we're just trying to get a solid footing for which we make our conclusions is kind of the idea. And one way to start doing that is to provide the hardware and the software to, one, digitize everything, but also take all the mental load off of the experimentation design because it's all digitized and you can trust that it does what it says it's supposed to do.
Yeah. So go see Nathan, and
if you're in the area,
on Wi-Fi. Yeah, I don't know if there's tickets still available. It's not really a plug, other than it's kind of a plug because you'll be there. But I'm excited to talk about this next week and get your analysis of kind of the data collection process and what you've learned and the problems that you've encountered along the way and overcame.
I mean, 90% of it's going to be no one knows what the heck is going on. My hair's on fire, and we're just trying to figure it out. But it'll be fun either way. I'm excited to talk about it. At least the people who are interested. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Typical weekend.
All right, we're over by a lot, so
okay, all good. No worries. Okay, take care.
All right.
Yeah.